Hello, welcome to the Roy Rogers News Channel. Thank you so much for watching. Welcome to the PokeMMO Tubers episode 2. And with me is Roded D. Walk and MT Birchfield. Roded, would you like to say hello?
Hey there.
And MT Birchfield, would you like to say hello as well?
How's it going?
Alright, and I just have to say, I would like to congratulate my friend MT Birchfield for receiving 1,000 subscribers. That's a pretty big milestone. Congratulations to 1,000 subscribers, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It was 5 years of work.
Wow. Yeah, I understand the feeling. I mean, it took me quite a bit of some work to get to 1,000 subscribers as well, and I hope you all continue to subscribe to Roy Rogers News because there's a lot more projects coming down the pike. MT Birchfield, I have a little surprise for you. I couldn't really give you a medal for getting 1,000 subscribers, but I can give you this.
Oh.
Look at the name of it.
1,000 subs. I appreciate that, dude. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, certainly. I know that you have a Tyranitar in your sand team, so I figured, hey, you can go ahead and have an Excadrill there.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. There we go. And by the way, this was not prepped before, so you're getting MT Birchfield's live reaction right now. So,
yeah, I was not. That's awesome, dude. Dude, I'm gonna breed you for alligator.
Wow. Thank you, man. I really appreciate it. Wow. I'm so flattered. Having an OT MT Birchfield for alligator, that'd be really nice. So.
Yeah, I'll be giving away a 5x13 Pokemon, and I've already picked the winner, so they'll be getting their Pokemon pretty soon, and I'll be breeding it personally, putting on all the moves, all that stuff to celebrate 1,000 subscribers.
Wow, wonderful, wonderful. All right, so there we go. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive straight into our topic here. So Conkeldurr has received a lot of talk on forums, and some people are nervous about it getting banned. Now, we personally don't feel like that Conkeldurr is going to get banned, but what's your take on Conkeldurr? Roded?
Alright, so Conk is definitely very strong. It's, what is it, like the second or third most used Pokemon right now for a reason. It basically kills almost anything, so its only downside is that it's slow, and basically has to either burn itself over time to maximize its coverage with Facade, or it has to, give up the ability to check really powerful psychic types like Reuniclus. So Conkeldurr with the right set can 2-hit KO basically any Pokemon that exists, which is why I see why a lot of people have a problem with it. Mach Punch also means that a lot of Pokemon that are faster can just be killed straight off the bat, like after a boost. Kabutops goes down, Excadrill is just never going to have a chance, always killed. So it's a huge threat to offensive teams and defensive teams. That being said, I don't think it's ban-worthy because I think that the ability to play around Conkeldurr certainly exists. The fact that it has to take residual damage means that it's on a timer, a self-imposed timer. If you rack that up with something like Rocky Helmet Hippowdon, suddenly Conkeldurr is taking 30% of its HP per turn just from Burn, Helmet, and Sand. And so there's always options to play around it between if you're having problems, Skarmory with Helmet, Hippo with Helmet, Mandibuzz with Helmet, just bulky physical Pokemon with a Helmet, you're probably fine.
Right, and the unlikely case scenario that Conkeldurr does get banned, we were discussing a lot about Conkeldurr and what sort of Pokemon can be similar but not quite there, and Breloom could be a possibility, but again, we think that it's unlikely that Conkeldurr is going to be banned, but just in case the Tier List Council does decide to ban Conkeldurr, Breloom is a pretty decent option, although it plays slightly differently, but it can learn very similar moves to Conk. I know its attack stats 130, but it can still play similarly. It has Spore, so that's an additional perk that you have with Breloom. MT Birchfield, what do you think about all this?
I think Breloom is a good substitute there, especially with Spore. Spore's really annoying to to play around. And then Breloom's actually pretty quick, has pretty good attacking power. The thing about Conkeldurr is it's kind of like Royd had said. He's not really the cause of the meta. He's kind of more of a symptom of the meta, and he just counters a lot of things really well, and so that's why he's so prevalent. It's not that he himself is necessarily overpowered or anything.
Yeah, I like that. It's a good way to put it.
Yeah, but Breloom's good. I know we had mentioned Machamp. Does
Yeah.
Machamp get cut?
Yes, it does, but the only main drawback to Machamp is that it doesn't get Mach Punch. It only gets Bullet Punch, and it cannot learn Drain Punch. It can learn Close Combat, but it can't learn Drain Punch, which means it can't really sap its health back.
And that's what I think. If you're going to go with something other than Conkeldurr, you need something to be able to challenge Blissey and Chansey, and that definitely has to be Breloom if it's not Conk.
Yeah, I honestly think the next closest Pokemon to Conkeldurr is actually Reuniclus rather than another fighting type. And that the way that they both are bulky enough to survive basically any offensive Pokemon and threaten to KO in return. And they have an ability through either Conkeldurr burning himself and powering up his attacks, or by Reuniclus being immune to through Magic Guard, that they also will take on bulky Pokemon pretty well. And then they also both, use fighting type attacks, because Reuniclus should have Focus Blast.
Right, yes, certainly. Alright, so our next topic is going to be Dugtrio. So, Dugtrio's made a recent resurgence in OU, and this is pretty much a death sentence for any Tentacruel users. I'm sure you don't want to see Dugtrio, because when you do Scald, no problem. Dugtrio has Focus Sash, and it can just Earthquake you right out. And, yeah, Tentacruel, you have to be really careful how you use it now, because Dugtrio's now making an appearance. Rodid, what's your take on the Dugtrio resurgence in OU?
Alright, so as I'll always say about Dugtrio, it is a terrible Pokemon. It should never be allowed in any format that even pretends to call itself competitive. Right now, I don't think Dugtrio is very good, actually, so I'm not too sure why it would be seeing a resurgence. I think it's often serves the purpose to prop up teams that have glaring weaknesses, but the addition of Teleport Blissey has ruined one of its main trapping targets, and the 3-turn trapping limit also hurts it. So it's in a bad spot, but I don't think the fact that Dugtrio is currently not very viable means that Dugtrio isn't unhealthy. I think that it is still an inherently unhealthy Pokemon that is just not viable right now, but if you have to, nerf the viability out of an unhealthy Pokemon, like why is it around? If we're in the business of throwing out bans, come on, PokeMMO, please, kill it.
Oh, wow. Alright, and by the way, I think one of your videos was responsible for throwing Garchomp out of the meta, so I think Garchomp has a thank you letter to write for you, Rodid.
I sure hope not. The video is strictly about Sandvale, but if I did, then so help me. I will take my punishment from Garchomp for what I've done.
Oh, wow. MT, what do you think?
As far as like stopping Dugtrio and all that kind of stuff, I don't think right now he's an issue in the meta, kind of like Rodid said, but that doesn't mean he's not bad or unhealthy for the meta. I know I've played against a lot of Dugtrio. I'm not a fan because it kind of makes you have to play around it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, Shed Hut everywhere.
Yes, and it's one of those Pokemon that's just. It's not necessarily good on its own. It's just got a really powerful ability that makes it so good. As far as that goes, one of my favorite counters to it usually is to swap in with like Gyarados or anything, because I think Gyarados can't be trapped because of its arena trap.
Oh yeah, and also it intimidates too. So you get the added bonus of that as well. So yeah, and actually another counter is the Scizor, specifically Pursuit Scizor. Pursuit trapping the Dugtrio, and then you can essentially catch it on the switch, because people think, oh, I can't knock out a Scizor, I have to switch. And or you can hit it on the other side, predicting that Dugtrio's not going to switch. You can do Bullet Punch and priority hit it, and Dugtrio's defense is pretty paper at base 50, so it's going to be knocked out, assuming that your Scizor is choice banded. So yeah, Dugtrio can probably be taken care of by Scizor if you have any Dugtrio problems in your team. So yeah, and actually MT Birchfield made a really good transition. We're going to talk about Gyarados, and surprisingly, in my PvP team I have several answers to Gyarados, so I don't think about Gyarados too much personally, but but we were talking off camera about a lot of other Pokemon, but Gyarados seems to be pretty versatile. What would be a good way to handle Gyarados in particular?
P2. Yep.
Porygon 2. Man.
Yes. There are lots of other Pokemon that can handle Gyarados, but almost all of them lose to some set or another, whereas Porygon 2 always beats every Gyarados. Just run an electric type attack, so you're immune to any sub or taunt shenanigans. Voila. You copy Intimidate when you come in, and you're massively bulky.
Oh wow. Yeah, and I know that some people are probably gonna write to us, but Roy, I have a Rotom Wash specifically for Gyarados. Rodid, well, what do you have for the viewers writing?
Power Whip, baby. That's right. Rotom Wash was the best Gyarados answer for a while. It's still fine because you can just hope they don't have Power Whip, but that's generally not a strong thing to rely on in a match. And just with the introduction of Power Whip, it's iffy.
Viewers are gonna also write, but Rodid, Jolteon. Jolteon's a great answer for Gyarados. What do you say to the?
Yeah, Jolly Gyarados. So a lot of Gyarados aren't running Jolly. I think a good Gyarados set actually should rely more on like a bulky Adamant set. But technically, it's really not worth the risk because Jolly Gyarados after Dragon Dance outspeeds Jolteon and always kills. So like there's lots of Pokemon that sometimes beat Gyarados, but relying on a Pokemon that sometimes beat Gyarados is pretty iffy because once it gets a couple Dragon Dances, it can really tear teams apart. Your always answers are going to be like Militech and Porygon 2.
Certainly. MT, what do you have to say about Gyarados?
I mean, I like Gyarados. He's one of my favorite Pokemon, but there are some clear, like we talked about just now. Thanks, Porygon 2. Porygon 2, as I know, Rainbow's Friends, you absolutely love. He's an excellent, probably the best single counter, and I don't think there's much more I can add to that as far as like what counters Gyarados and you know. I don't know right now how big of a threat Gyarados is in the meta. He's pretty prevalent. He's OU definitely, but he's not probably the worst threat out of them all. But still, it's important to know how to counter him, and if your team struggles against a Gyarados, what you can do to get it, Porygon 2. You're set.
Yeah, certainly.
Like that being said, Porygon 2 is fantastic against all sorts of Pokemon. It's not like, I'm gonna give up my defensive Pokemon just to beat Gyarados. It's like, no, Porygon 2 beats surprisingly most things, honestly.
Right. So, yeah, and speaking about Porygon, so you do know that Porygon 2 can learn Teleport, right?
Yeah, it's insane. That move just skyrockets the viability of any Pokemon that learns it.
Right, and speaking about that, so our next topic, we're going to talk about pivot moves, because I know that a lot of teams have problems with pivoting moves, whether it be U-turn or teleport or volt switch. There are a lot of teams that are vulnerable to that, and people freak out because they're locked in a Pokemon. They're like, oh, I'm gonna go ahead and get this Blissey right here. I got my Breloom, or I got my Conk, or I got my Pokemon here, and all of a sudden, boom, Blissey teleports and goes into another Pokemon, and all of a sudden your fighting type is staring at something that can knock it out very fast. So, man, so we have pivoting mons like Teleport, Chansey, and Blissey, and the rare Porygon 2, and we also have the Volt Switch Jolteon, or Magnezone, or Rotom Wash. Magnezone is especially deadly for Skymory and for Excadrill, implying that it has Air Balloon. So, yeah, and also it's deadly for Ferrothorn as well, implying that it has Hidden Power Fire. And also Rotom Wash, Volt Switch, U-turn Caesar, and Dormanitan, or Minenshao. So, yeah, how do you handle that? How you handle all that shenanigans is that you can carry a Rocky Helmet, Hippowdon, Cofagrigus, or Mandibuzz, because it walls pretty well. And Hippowdon's really good because it's a ground type, so you can be able to make yourself immune against electric moves. In fact, I think a lot of the meta right now, aren't there a lot of battles in PvP that have a bunch of ground Pokemon?
Kind of. I will say that ground Pokemon have to worry about the most common electric type Pokemon right now, being Rotom Wash, which also comes with Water Stab, which means that virtually every single viable ground type is 2-hit KO'd by Specs Hydro, and most 2-hit KO'd by even non-Specs. So running a ground type that isn't Gastrodon is really scary. Don't get me wrong, Gastrodon is by far like not the only viable ground type. There's lots of other answers, but if you are having problems with Volt Turn, the single Pokemon that always beats every version of Volt Turn is just going to be Fizdef Gastrodon. So Fizdef Gastrodon, you can run counter if you want to get really spicy with it, or you can just run Rocky Helmet to chip Scizor. It's immune to both stabs of Rotom Wash, which is why you don't need Spidef, because you're just straight up immune, because of its ability to absorb water type attacks. And then when it comes to Scizor, with physical bulk, even though Gastrodon has truly appalling physical defense, you're able to survive Scizor more than well enough. With counter, you can either kill whatever comes in, or if you have Rocky Helmet, you can just click to heal every time Scizor attacks you. Scizor has to go for U-turn, as it's its most powerful move against you, at which point you heal up all the damage, Scizor gets chipped, rinse and repeat.
Oh, man.
You also beat Rain, because Kabutops is hard checked by Fizdef Gastro. So, 2 birds.
Wow, you killed 2 birds with 1 stone. Nice. All right. So there we go. In this case, you kill both a bug and a fossil sharp thing at the same time. So yeah, that's great. Rodent, I'm trying to make this expression work.
All right. Yeah, no, I see where you're going with this. Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, certainly. So yeah, Gastrodon is really good. I mean, yeah, I see it a lot, and actually,
I was just gonna say the good thing about Gastrodon too is it synergizes well with like rain, sand, all that kind of stuff. So it's really good to put on teams. It's not like you're taking something and plugging it into your team that won't work with other styles of teams. Essentially.
although Rotom Wash now, there are some variants that predict Gastrodon, and they actually carry Hidden Power Grass, and you're actually starting to see a lot more of a resurgence of Hidden Power Grass specifically for Gastrodon. I mean, it also is good to handle Swampert, but Swampert's not really used too much. It's really more for Gastrodon.
Yeah, and that certainly is a threat if you're not running the Spidef Gastro. I will say, if you are running especially defensive Gastrodon, it really doesn't care that much about Hidden Power Grass, surprisingly enough. Let me pull it up right now. From the modest, so plus special attack nature, Rotom Wash, even if you're running, well, let's start with 0. With no investment in special attack, it's like a 3-hit KO against Gastrodon with 4 times super effective Hidden Power Grass. That's just because Hidden Power is weaker in our gen. Because if you don't know, it was base 70 in Gen 5, but in later generations it was changed to base 60. So because movesets in PokeMMO are based off later games, it's going to be that. So even with modest 252 special attack, you only have like a 50% chance to 2-hit KO special defense Gastrodon. So if you are thinking, I'll just run Hidden Power Grass Rotom Wash, know that it's tricky.
And also people are running Rotom Mo with Leaf Storms.
You only end up having like a 44% chance to 2-hit KO if you land 2 Hidden Power Grasses in a row, which also means you're giving up a move slot on Rotom. Gastrodon can just switch out of the way. It's messy. It can be done, and if your team really needs Rotom to be able to handle Gastrodon on its own, then special attack investment in HB Grass is where it's at. But at that point, I think you're probably better off leading into just Rotom Mo, which still gives you the fantastic Volt Switch, still has a Grass type stab to threaten any ground types that would switch in, and also just covers Gastrodon.
Right. Yeah, and also Rotom Mo as well. People are running Rotom Mo specifically for Gastrodon, which, but because of Leaf Storm, because Leaf Storm can hit really hard. What do you have to say about Rotom Mo?
Oh, yeah, Rotom Mo is great. So some of the downsides, importantly, is that if your team is weak to Togekiss, then whereas Rotom Wash is a very good Togekiss answer because it resists Flying type, then Rotom Mo is going to be is significantly more threatened by Togekiss because suddenly you're taking neutral damage. Also, when it comes to Scizor's U-turn is going to be just one-shotting a Rotom Mo because suddenly it's weak to Bug. So you give up some of the more common things that you want a Rotom to be able to check, but you gain the ability to break through a lot of Pokemon because Grass is a fantastic attacking type. There's just very few good attacking Grass Pokemon. So you basically trade off some of the the wider defensive utility for the ability to counter some specific matchups that Rotom really wants to beat.
So that's how you address the Gastrodon, although you are doing a trade-off, especially if your team is weak to Togekiss. So Rotom Wash is really good, though. Rotom Wash is really good, but if you're having a lot of problems with Gastrodon, then maybe you can consider Rotom-Mow. So, in fact, there are some variants that even have Black Sludge, where they trick on a Black Sludge so you can get hurt.
Yeah, good option too.
Yeah, actually, I've seen that variant before. I've actually battled against one in PvP. We talked about the pivoting moves and how to prevent that, so yeah, Bad Defense Gastrodon would be a really good answer, especially with Rocky Helmet, because you can do passive damage against Caesar, so yeah, certainly. And now that we discussed about pivoting moves and how to counter them, let's go ahead and talk about the setup moves and how to counter them. So the setup moves, I would say, is the Sword Stance, Caesar, or Excadrill, Nasty Plot, Gengar, or Togekiss, and the either or, so Pokemon that can go either Sword Stance or Nasty Plot can be either Infernape or Lucario. Both of those Pokemon are the only two Pokemon that can switch between Sword Stance or Nasty Plot. And then we have Bulk Up Breloom or Conk. And then we have Calm Mind Reuniclus or Chandelure. Quiver Dance Volcarona, Dragon Dance Gyarados, which we've been talking about earlier, Dragonite, Tyranitar, or Salamence, or Shell Smash Cloyster. I mentioned a lot of setup mons that you see quite commonly when you battle, and yeah, those may be ferocious, but there is an answer to them. So you can grab a Haze Tentacruel, specifically for Calm Minders, because Tentacruel is really good in its special defensive stat, or Milotic, especially with Flame Orb. Haze Milotic is really good to throw a lot of these, so set up Pokemon off guard, or you can do a Haze Cofagrigus as well, which is good for defense. Or you can take advantage of the fact that these Pokemon have set up, and you can do Foul Play Mandibuzz, which does even more damage against the Pokemon, because as Pokemon is doing Sword Stance or setup moves, Mandibuzz can do Foul Play, and it can do a lot of damage, and you can even knock out some Pokemon with just Foul Play. Or you can have a phasing Pokemon like Whirlwind Skymory or Roar Hippowdon, or any taunt user. Although worth noting, Whirlwind is now ATM, so you can teach your Pokemon Whirlwind. No need to worry about the option of Roar or Whirlwind. You can just pick Whirlwind all the way. So, what do you have to say about setup mons and how to prevent them?
Sure. So not getting swept by setup Pokemon is pretty important. And so your team needs to have basically defensive pivots that are able to not just handle something like the Zora that'll throw off an immediately strong hit. You need to be able to have something that can survive a boosted hit from like common setup attackers, Gyarados, Conkeldurr, etc. And so for that, you're generally looking to have something on the sides of Blissey for special. And the way that a Blissey type check would answer a boosting Pokemon is with a status type move. So once you get a Toxic on it, you're basically good. And some other viable options are going to be your phasers, what they're called, Pokemon like Skarmory or Mandibuzz, that are saying they're going to survive the hit, and then just whirlwind them out. Or Sash Revenge Killers, also a good option. So let's say you've got your opponent's, boosted up 5 times from Salamence, it's enormous. But, if you got Sash Cloyster, doesn't matter. Just, they hit you, you live, take it out. There's lots of different ways, it's important to address it immediately. So if you think they're going to Dragon Dance, don't stay in and try to chip them 20% with, like, a Choice-locked Hidden Power Fire or something. Just, if you suspect someone's going to set up, you need to answer it immediately, because even with the best defensive Pokemon out there, once a setup Pokemon get to a certain point, they're just uncheckable.
Right. And you also have certain Pokemon as well in the meta. But I know that some viewers are probably going to write me this. But Roy, for the Blissey, I can't really do that because, if I Toxic a Reuniclus, it's just going to laugh at me because it has Magic Guard. And then on top of that, it can do Psyshock against my Blissey. Rhoda, well, what's your answer for
sure,
Reuniclus?
Yeah, Reuniclus is a pretty unique case in terms of setup Pokemon because it can set up against almost anything. Your best answers are going to be Scizor, generally, which is threatening to, I don't know, deal about 70-80% of Reuniclus's HP. The thing to remember when you see Reuniclus is, unless it is on a dedicated Trick Room team or you have seen it use Trick Room, you should generally be expecting the max physical defense set, which is bafflingly tanky, and can even survive Bandit Scissor's U-turn. Yeah, clocking in at an average like 85% HP. So Scizor is still going to be your best bet though, because after taking 80% of its HP in one hit, Reuniclus is in no position to set up. Reuniclus also isn't threatening Scizor with a one-hit KO. So that's generally a good option. Dark types are also great. Mandibuzz is going to be your best friend against Reuniclus, because no matter what status Reuniclus has gotten to, you're almost always going to be able to just whirlwind it out. I've seen a lot of Reuniclus get greedy and run Acid Armor plus Calm Mind and Recover. This lets them beat almost any Pokemon. You can set up in anything's face. The problem is that they can't touch Dark types. So Mandibuzz gets it out of there, no problem.
MT, what do you have to say about this?
Just pretty much. I mean, there's not a whole lot to add to that. It's just basically either having haze or being able to phase it out using Roar or using
Whirlwind.
And now, one thing special to say about Roar, Roy did brought this up earlier when we were talking before it. If somebody runs, oh my goodness, what is it called?
Soundproof.
Yes,
Yes.
soundproof.
Expelot and Electrode are the ones you're going to be afraid
Yeah.
of.
Yeah, if they're running that, then it can shut down Roar, but it doesn't seem to be that prevalent. A lot of people are just kind of running it. If you're running X-Clouds, you've got bigger problems.
Right. It's one of those, it'll almost never come up, but like, wouldn't you feel foolish if the one time it does come up, you're stuck there with a Roar Pokemon, and your pants around your ankles.
Yeah, and Whirlwind has no disadvantages. So you can use Whirlwind. Whirlwind is now a TM. You can go to any department store these days and you can buy TM Whirlwind and you can just teach any Pokemon Whirlwind. Whirlwind, you no longer have to breed it or learn it via leveling. It is now a TM, so the development team on PokeMMO has made lives of competitive players a lot easier, because now there's a lot of brand new TMs. And in part one, I think I surprised both of you when I said that Hydro Pump and Dragon Dance were both TMs.
Yeah, the new TM changes have been really nice. It's
It's a lot of
I
quality.
did not realize they were this good.
Oh yeah, certainly. Yeah, certainly. So, yeah. So let's go ahead and discuss about weather. So we discussed setup. Now I know that some people are probably going to ask, but Roy, my problem is that I'm dealing with rain or sand, and I hate it when I see a Pelipper, or I hate it when I see a Tyranitar or Hippowdon, because I get swept by them and I don't know how to answer the rain and sand. And the really good answer, and I know Rodid loves special defensive Gastrodon, so I'm going to let Rodid explain why special defensive Gastrodon is good for sand and rain.
Alright, so 90% there. I actually think that FizzDef Gastrodon is your answer to take down both. While specially defensive was usually just seen to counter rain in the era when rain was just incredibly oppressive with trapping Pokemon, Gastrodon, when you're running FizzDef, allows it to check Kabutops, which has been coming out of the woodwork now that rain needs a physical answer, because you resist both of Kabutops's, well, by resisting, you're immune to the water type attacks, and you resist the rock type attacks, leaving it with best case scenario, superpower if it's running it, that isn't going to do much to you. So you've basically countered half of most rain offense teams. Then with sand, Excadrill can't kill Gastrodon and is always threatened to be burned or just one shot in return. So while Gastrodon is probably not the best Pokemon for either, you can think of some more specific Pokemon for them, it is one of the best at both. And when paired with Blissey, Blissey plus FizzDef Gastrodon is basically always going to beat every rain team. So that's a pretty good defensive core just in general, but also specifically against rain. And then if you're struggling with sand, you've got all sorts of options. Your own Hippowdon, Skarmory, well, I mean, kind of those. Oh, Conkeldurr, of course.
Yeah, but
no matter how much
we don't know if it's going to be banned or not. But if it's not banned, then then Conkeldurr is certainly a good option. Yeah, so, MT, what do you think about the rain and sand teams?
Rain and sand teams are pretty prevalent. Most people They're running one or the other on most competitive matches I've seen. I think Gastrodon is a good usage right there. Something really weird, and I never thought to mention this when we were talking earlier, but I don't know if it's active or if it would even be viable whatsoever because you would have to waste a team slot on it. But Cloud9 Psyduck, is that even in the game right now?
Cloud9 Golduck is. Cloud9 Golduck is.
Not Psyduck, sorry. I said the wrong thing. Golduck, yes, it can come in and cancel the effects of weather, and I have seen a couple of videos online with people running that in an off-meta style and trying to use something that's like anti-meta to
See, this is why you should watch the PokeMMO Tubers episodes, because we could mention something that can break the meta. MT Birchfield just mentioned right there something that could break the meta. Thank you so much, MT Birchfield, for your wisdom there.
No problem. I got it from the garbage. So.
Oh wow. And then I know that some people may be worried about Sun teams, although Sun teams are pretty rare and I hardly ever see them in OU, but we should mention them anyways because I know some people are going to mention Sun teams. Now, I don't think that a special defensive Gastrodon is really going to help us here, right? Because there's a bunch of chlorophyll grass types that are going to knock it out.
Yep, exactly. This is the one team where Gastrodon isn't very spectacular, although generally the team's going to have some Pokemon, like some fire types probably, where it'll be fine. So it's still not dead weight, but particularly against Sun teams, the main thing they lack is that their Pokemon are just bad, honestly. Like, with Excadrill is good outside of sand. Kingdra is good outside of rain. Kabutop's also kind of good outside of rain. But Pokemon like Sawsbuck and
Victory Bell.
Victory Bell. Yeah, are just pretty much unusable. Chlorophyll Venusaur is a different story. It's pretty good. But we don't have that, so they're stuck using like the RU tier Sun Pokemon. And so generally they can be countered just by a strong defensive wall. Like Mandibuzz is really in no danger from a Sawsbuck. Wait, nope, Sawsbuck gets Well Charge. I still think it's fine. Regardless, just whatever you're using to check physical Pokemon, good against physical attackers. Whatever you're using against special Pokemon, probably good against their special attackers. Unless you're using Gastrodon, then, you're maybe in trouble. But
Oh man. See, the Sun teams, they're very rare, but I figured that they should be mentioned because we did mention weather, so sun, rain, and sand. So, yeah, hail is virtually non-existent, so we're just going to skip over hail here. There's no reason to run hail in OU. Like, what's the best hail Pokemon? Mamoswine, but Mamoswine gets knocked out pretty fast. Like, it's out like a light in like a matter of few. In fact, Mamoswine briefly was an OU, but then during when Unova was released, Mamoswine was briefly OU, but it was so bad with that ice typing, it got kicked down. But it has a pretty good attack stat. But hail teams are just not really worth mentioning, right?
I also think those two types of weather, hail and sun, kind of suffer from the entry hazards of like stealth rocks and stuff because both the setters are weak to
right.
stealth rocks. Like, it hurts them pretty bad, and so that doesn't do them anything good, especially when stealth rocks are pretty prevalent right now.
Although I did see one guy in PvP use Abomasnow, and that guy's probably going to write to me saying, "But Roy, I've used an Abomasnow to hail, and and it works." Well,
that's where this Abomasnow is good. It's not about hail. It's just Abomasnow is actually a pretty good Pokemon.
Yeah, but see, the problem with Abomasnow is that it's susceptible to a lot of the fire types. I mean, there's Infernape, there's especially Darmanitan. There's also Volcarona. Abomasnow is very vulnerable to a lot of Pokemon.
Oh sure, it's far from like my first pick for most teams, but like I don't know. I've seen some very well used Abomasnow, so like I'll give him that. Abomasnow I think is good, but it doesn't making a whole team around hail. Yeah, it's just begging to get swept by Conkeldurr or any fire type.
I'm just saying we need to buff the ice type.
Yeah, wow.
Give a Slush Rush, Sand Slash. There we go.
Wow. All right, man. So you're still gonna get that torch and riot or in the streets of PokeMMO if we don't get Slush Rush or something?
Why do you think I have? Why do you think I have torch equipment?
Uh-oh. Just don't burn my studio. All right, you can ride around the streets. Just don't burn the studio, please.
I can't.
Yeah, I better fireproof this studio after we get done taping. All right, so we talked a lot about the weather Pokemon. So yeah, let's go ahead and move to the Pokemon that use Taunt. Now, how to surprise a Pokemon that uses Taunt, and this is especially a problem for your classic wall. So my answer, I would probably say, is hit them with that left hook where they don't expect this. In other words, you might want to. I mean, if you have a wall with an attacking move, you can hit it, and if that wall can hit decently hard against a Pokemon that you think has Taunt, as a brief example, Aerodactyl. If you see an Aerodactyl in the OU, good chance that it has Taunt, so you can probably hit it with that left hook there. You know, I've seen Cough-Egregious run Shadow Ball. I've seen walls run good attacking moves specifically to give that left hook against the Taunt Pokemon. Rodid, what do you have to say about this?
Absolutely. So when dealing with Taunt, there are some Pokemon that are really shut down by Taunt. Hippowdon is often preyed upon by stuff like Taunt Skarmory and Taunt Mandibuzz is just completely invalidated as a Pokemon, which is sad, but something you have to deal with. The main way to beat Taunt is just to realize that there are very few Pokemon that viably run Taunt. If you're in a situation, specifically against elite Pokemon, where it's an Aerodactyl, an Electrode, a Minchao, Gliscor, or Mandibuzz, and of course there are a couple others, those are some of the main ones, and you're in a situation where, let's say, you're a Pokemon that is expected to put up rocks, such as Turn 1 Hippowdon.
Wait, hang on. Minchao can have Taunt?
Oh yes, that's what makes it so good as a lead, is it has Taunt and U-Turn and Regenerator. So it's fantastic at just flipping around through your team, taunting your setup Pokemon.
Well, there's some viewers that think that Minchao is just a life orb attacker. You know, people don't know that Minchao can actually learn Taunt as well. Wow. Thank you so much.
It's a really risky game, though, to taunt. Like, Skarmory is a pretty common target you want to taunt, but, you know, if they see that coming and they Brave Bird, then goodbye Minchao. So it's, you know, it's good to have Taunt to shut down some defensive walls, but you're not that bulky, so it can backfire if they see it coming.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, well, Minchao, I think that surprised a lot of people because not a lot of people know that, you know. So, yeah, thank you so much, Rodid, and again, this is why watching the PokeMMO Tubers episode here is pretty useful because you get some pretty good advice here. So, yeah, thank you so much, Rodid.
Oh, yeah, no worries. It's not a terribly commonly seen Pokemon anymore. It used to be a lot more prevalent when I first started playing.
Oh, wow. All right. Well, after this video, let's see if Minchao is still prevalent. All right. I think you might spike its usability there. MT, what do you think about all this, about the taunt?
Generally, like if a wall of mine gets taunted that I do not want to be taunted, I swap out and swap to something that I know is safe. In the event that the Pokemon doesn't need to leave the field, you could become setup fodder if that's the case. It's very dangerous, but I don't know. Anti-taunters, it's just really knowing the team, knowing what your opponent has, what can taunt you, being aware of if they send that in, if it's like trying to bait you into doing something that you're going to get taunted with. Just pretty much being aware and identifying those Pokemon and trying to take them out before they can taunt you and mess you up.
All right, yeah, certainly. So, Rodid, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. I was just kind of surprised by Minchao being a frequent taunt user. I was surprised by that.
Yeah, no worries. So yeah, just basically the conclusion is that if you are up against a Pokemon that you can reasonably expect to have Taunt, and it is a turn where you think it is obvious that you will go for a tauntable move, such as you're low health and want to recover, or you don't have rocks up and you're a Pokemon that can use rocks, then it's generally good to not go for that move, because wasting a turn as they go for Taunt is really bad. Because then, you know, they're up in advantage and you're taunted, so then they can U-turn out and you still can't rocks. So if you're in a situation like that, just go for the attacking move or preemptively switch. Because it's one of those things where, yeah, if you don't get rocks up and they don't taunt, it's kind of bad. But it's generally not as bad as getting your rocks denied and then being stuck with a useless wall. So just playing around the taunt before it happens rather than letting it happen, then being forced to switch out, losing the advantage.
Yeah, certainly. Throwing the left hook. Rudy, you do think that's pretty good to throw the left hook, right?
Yes,
So some
yeah.
Pokemon can do that.
Yeah, there are some Pokemon that just don't really have viable attacking options.
Right.
Although they're not really coming to mind, because even Pokemon like Blissey, I think, really like having like Flamethrower and Seismic Toss as potential attacks. But yeah, that's why you see a lot of Pokemon have offensive moves, is just so that they're not completely passive walls against taunt, so they have some ability to fight back.
But Blissey does carry Shadow Ball.
So. Yes,
Yeah.
Shadow Ball Blissey is a lot more common now that Gengar got the ability to beat Blissey with Nasty Plot.
Yeah, certainly. So, yeah, and Blissey doesn't want to be a sitting duck against the Gengar, so...
I believe it has taunt, but yeah, you still rarely see taunt Gengar, so don't worry about that much. Just if you don't know if Gengar has a move, assume it does. This thing learns every move.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah, I mean, Gengar is a glass cannon, though, so Gengar can't really take too much of a physical hit. Or special hit, especially.
Really, anything, yeah. It's real.
Yeah, which is why Scizor is such a good counter against it. Scizor is really good. Bullet Punch, especially.
Yep.
Yeah, and Pursuit Trapping, too. You can also Pursuit Trap it with Scizor. Yeah, Scizor is really good, so... Yeah.
Most used Pokemon for a reason.
Yeah, certainly. Although, we should talk about something else that could actually do serious harm to a wall, because you can't switch in and out. With this is more of a permanent change, unless the Pokemon does Trick again, but that's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about how to spot a Trick Pokemon and punishing them, because that's a really important trait, especially with... If you see Rotom, I always like to think that Rotom is Trick unless I see otherwise, and that's why I like to see if the sand impacts it, because I want to see if it has leftovers. I want to see what item it has. I don't want to be tricked by a Rotom and then think, oh no, this Pokemon is stuck with the choice specs or something awful, and then I'm forced to use only one move per turn. So what's the best way to spot and punish a Tricker?
Sure. So the easiest giveaway for a Trick Pokemon is it's a Pokemon that is choice locked, that doesn't want to be. So Pokemon like Rotom and Gengar in particular are some of the biggest giveaways, because while this Pokemon are good choice, don't get me wrong, they generally love their the ability to change up their move pool and throw things like Substitute or Volt Switch into a Hydro Pump, yada yada. So if you see one of those Pokemon is choiced, and the way you'll know that is either they are faster than expected, so that means the choice scarfed, or if you're calculating the damage, you know how much they should do. If they hit more than a normal hit's worth of damage, and they don't take Life Orb recoil, you can say, okay, cool. By process of elimination, this is choice specs. You should reasonably expect it to have Trick. So the way you play around that is on a turn when it is very obvious to switch, let's say, your Gastrodon into the Rotom, you just don't. I mean, it's risky because, what if they don't Trick, which is, the benefit of Trick, because now suddenly you're switching in something to take a choice spec Hydro Pump, which is why I think Specs Rotom is so good. But that's how you see it coming, is looking for weird choice Pokemon. In terms of playing around it, it's a bit more tricky, because even if you know it's coming, sometimes there's no right answer.
Right. Well, actually, there is an answer to Trick Rotom.
And like the worse item you trick onto the Rotom, the worse item it can then trick back onto you. So Jerry actually had a really good suggestion that if you equip the male items on your Pokemon, the trick just fails. It cannot swap a male item. So if you're really worried about your Gastrodon being tricked, which is a pretty common answer from Rotom, you can run a male item. The problem is that you give up leftovers, so it's you win some, you lose some, but it's an option if you are really afraid of Trick.
All right, now that we talked about the Pokemon that they use to move Trick, let's go ahead and talk about the setup hazards, and we're going to talk about it from two angles. We're going to talk about it like you're setting up the hazards, and then we're going to talk about how to deal with your opponent's hazards. So let's go and talk about you first. You setting up the hazards. So you can set up a total of 3 layers of spikes, and then you can lay a total of 2 toxic spikes, but if you lay 1 layer, it's poisoned, and if you lay 2 layers, and it's badly poisoned, and if you lay stealth rocks, then you can be able to chip a lot of Pokemon, and you can essentially nullify it. You can nullify the focus sash because that won't work. So, yeah, so Rodid, what do you have to say about hazards and setting them up safely?
Sure. So the most important thing to keep in mind with either setting or removing hazards is that hazards are only as important as the effect they have on yours or your opponent's win condition. So the best way to think about this is, let's say your opponent is running Cloyster and Volcarona, both Pokemon weak to Stealth Rock, and Cloyster especially is generally known to run Focus Sash. In that game, getting up Stealth Rock is worth just straight up killing the Pokemon. Like, having your Hippowdon die to get up rocks is worth it in that, because getting those rocks up preemptively stops their best Pokemon from being able to win the game. Now, if you're in the same situation and your opponent's team looks like they're going through a win condition through Conkeldurr and Uniclus, suddenly Stealth Rock is fine to get up if you have a free turn, but generally not worth it because it's resisted by one and immune by their other. And in the same way that removing hazards can be important, if you're the Pokemon, if you're the person with Volcarona, then suddenly sacking a Pokemon to remove the hazards can be worth it, whereas if your team isn't weak to hazards, don't worry about it. It just is, in general, how I determine whether or not it's worth it to go for hazards or not.
Right. MT Birchfield, what do you have to say about this?
Sure. So I always break up like my entry hazards in terms of what I want to set first. Stealth Rocks always goes first for me because Stealth Rocks are capable of hitting every type of Pokemon except for Magic Guard users. Spikes are the next one I would go for because spikes, you can set the 3 layers of them. They do damage to everything that comes in, whereas toxic spikes do not damage poison types or steel types. But the toxic spikes also, you need to be reminded, can be removed by poison types landing on the field that do not have levitate, I think.
Yes.
But mainly what you want to do is you just want to evaluate your team. You don't want to try to start setting stealth rocks or any of that kind of stuff, any entry hazards, when it's a bad situation for you to set them. It's really important to be willing to switch in and out if your opponent does this. I play like this. This is my style of play right here, is to set a lot of entry hazards and then force my opponent to swap a lot into positions he doesn't want to be in. And that's basically what it is. It's just playing smart, playing calm and collected, and not putting yourself into a bad position to get something up. Just remember that if this is your win condition, if it's to whittle people down and then wear them off with some strong sweeper late in the game, that you need to be able to make it to that late game stage with those walls or whatever you're setting stealth rocks and spikes and all that with.
Right. And then you have the other side of the spectrum. So now you are having spikes and stealth rocks being set up on your side of the field, and you may be thinking, I need to get rid of these. How do I get rid of these? And there are actually 2 moves that you can use. You can either use Defog or Rapid Spin. Each one comes with a perk, and each one comes with a con. So the perk to Defog is that, well, you get rid of the hazards, even if ghost types are around. So spin blockers won't have any effect on Defog. That's the perk to having Defog. The con is that, well, you get rid of every single hazard. So if you set up hazards, well, your hazards are gone, as well as your opponent's hazards. So that's the con to carrying Defog. And Rapid Spin, the pro to that, actually there are 2 pros to carrying Rapid Spin, is that you get rid of hazards only on your side of the field, while your opponent maintains his or her hazards on his or her side. So Rapid Spin boosts speed by +1, so every time you do Rapid Spin, you increase your speed by +1. So, and the con to Rapid Spin is that you are prone to spin blockers. So Cough Egregious, Gengar, any ghost type is really going to come out and hurt you quite a bit. Yeah, Rodid, MT Birchfield, what do you guys have to say about this?
Oh, sure. Generally, defog is great because you don't have to worry about making contact. So if let's say you really need your opponent to not spin your hazards away, and you have a Pokemon that's at, let's call it 20% HP, but is weak to Stealth Rock. If you switch in and die to Stealth Rocks, then Rapid Spin fails, Ghosts make Rapid Spin fail. So unless you're a team looking specifically to stack hazards, or you're a team where a good spinner like Starmie or Tentacruel fits naturally. Don't be afraid of going for Defog. Defog is going to be your standard way to get rid of hazards. With the speed boost, I think it is pretty interesting to see what Starmie can do with boosted speed. That's kind of really nice. But still, generally, unless you're devoting your whole team to like stacking spikes and toxic spikes, Defog is probably where you should be leaning. But it all just depends on the Pokemon.
Right. So, MT, what do you have to say about this?
Just pretty much the same thing. Just know how your style of play. Like, if it's me, I rely very heavily on entry hazards and things like that being set for my team to be successful. I would need to run something that has rapid spin so I don't constantly remove my own spikes and stealth rocks and all that stuff. By the way, found out about that in a competitive battle one time. I was like, I got them. I'm going to use Defog, going to get rid of their spikes, all that stuff, and leave my stealth rocks up. Nope, I was dumb. Didn't know that it did that. So I messed myself up in one battle and lost that battle. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Something to look forward like in the future, and I don't know when all of this will be coming into the game or anything, but when hidden abilities come in, a potential counter could be Magic Bounce Espeon, which would be something that could bounce back people's stealth rocks and things like that at them. But we don't have that currently, so we have to kind of settle for Defog and for Rapid Spin.
Yeah, certainly. So, yeah, Defog, just weigh what you want in a team. Is it more important to maintain your hazards, or is it more important to get rid of all hazards, and you don't really care if your opponent has his or her hazards gone as well? So, weigh what move you want, because if you have hazards on your side of the field, if you're using a Volcarona or any fire type or something that's weak to rocks, then it's good to have something that can get rid of the rocks. Now that we discussed about ways to remove the hazards, let's go ahead and talk about one more concept here. So if you have friends that are engaged in the competitive scene, it's always good to test out your competitive teams out on people so that way you can spot the weak points. A lot of people, when they make competitive teams, people are oftentimes highly confident. They think that their team can rule the world, and they think, oh, well, there's going to be no weakness here. I thought of everything. Everything checks out. Well, every team has its weakness. And Rodid made a joke off camera.
Oh, sure. Yep. I guarantee that no matter what team you've created, there's some version of Infernape that just breaks through your team.
Oh, man. Wow. All right. Way to curb enthusiasm there. But
shut them down.
As Qui-Gon Jinn would say, there's always a bigger fish.
Oh, man. Yeah, certainly. But always testing out your competitive team is good. Every team has its weakness. No matter how ironclad you think your team is, there's still a guaranteed weakness to your team. If it were true that there'd be no weaknesses to the team that you use, then people would have 100% win streaks in matchmaking, but that doesn't happen, so no team is perfect. Rodid, MT Birchfield, what do you guys have to say about testing teams?
Sure. So when you make a team, you of course should be constantly looking at the Pokemon that are in OU, just look at Pokemon based off usage and go down the list as a checklist. Like, all right, most used, Scizor. Do I lose to Scizor? Well, if so, I'm probably going to lose 30% of my games, so that's pretty bad. Do I lose to Conkeldurr? All right, I need to check that. Do I lose to Hydreigon? So just go down the list of commonly used OU Pokemon and make sure you have an answer to them. And after that, your team should at least pass that check mark to at least be, potentially viable. Then you just need to start playing matches and find some random stuff like, oh my goodness, Nasty Plot, Grass Knot, and Infernape wrecked my team. And then you need to think about, is fixing that enough of a worry to justify, losing coverage against meta-relevant Pokemon, or do you just accept that if you meet some super niche set, you're going to have a problem with it? And that's where you try to just make your team as versatile as possible to cover all of these sets you're not specifically prepared for.
Right. MT, what do you have to say about this?
I usually, when I'm trying to test a team, I put it together, and then I go on to the casual things, and I know a lot of people will be on there, on the casual overused battles and stuff like that, testing their own teams. But I find that, just going out, battling, testing a team out, seeing what beats you, writing that down, trying to adjust some stuff in your team, change out a Pokemon here or there. That's the best way to really test your team. If you want to, you could go and do the actual ranked play and try to do that. I know some people try to preserve their win streaks and all that fun stuff, but I don't really care that much about what my record is and all that, so I go on there sometimes and battle. But yeah, just trial and error basically is the only way to figure out what beats you and what doesn't, and then adjusting when you figure that out.
Yeah, certainly. So, yeah, and no team is perfect, but you can try to do a catch-all on most of the threats. So, as an example, you can say, I can go ahead and get rid of Caesar. I have a Darmanitan in my team. Conk, no problem. I got Reuniclus all ready. Hydreigon, you can carry a Conkeldurr, or if Conkeldurr is banned, you can carry an Infernape, Rodid's favorite Pokemon, or Blissey, Infernape as well. Volcarona, and you could just go down the whole list. So maybe concerned about their streak that, as MT Birchfield has mentioned earlier. So what you can do is you can log into an alternative account, and then you can have that alternative account have its ranking affected, so it doesn't affect your main account. I know some people care about their... Now, on Best Friends, I don't battle PvP on Best Friends, but on my alternative account, I battle PvP. So you want to try to outwit your opponent, and you want to learn as much things about the competitive scene as you can, because there might be some knowledge that you may know that your opponent may not know about.
And no matter what you do, Infernape will kill you. It's coming for you.
That's a pretty good point to end off on. And yeah, man, I'm so sad to end this video with Road D Walk and MT Birchfield. Thank you so much, guys, for being a part of the Roy Rogers News channel once again.
Thanks. Glad to be here, man.
Yeah, that's fun. Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, I think I heard some crying.
It's rough. Leaving.
Oh, don't worry, but part 3 is on the way. Part 3 is on the way. All right. Thank you so much for watching. This is the Roy Rogers News channel. Don't forget to comment and subscribe to Roy Rogers News channel, because there's going to be a little bit more activities going on the Roy Rogers News channel. So stay tuned to Roy Rogers News. There's going to be more segments that I plan on introducing here. This is Roy Rogers News channel. Don't forget to comment and subscribe to the channel, like the content that you see here. And this is the Roy Rogers News channel signing off. Fast, accurate, unbiased. And in this episode, I should do a slogan for this episode. Fast, accurate, and great commentary by Road D Walk and MT Birchfield. Roy Rogers News.
Woo! We did it, team.